Hi everyone, and welcome to Variation 31. Variation 31 is about flying staccato again, but this time it's much faster. So the movement is a lot more passive. To prepare it, the best thing is to prepare it from the bottom up. The preparation for flying staccato is staying in one place. I explain that bowing in detail in Variation 15. Start with that at a comfortable speed. It's basically a circular motion, but you drop the bow and the hand and fingers react passively. So if you do it very slowly at first, just to teach your hand and fingers what you want them to do, and then speed it up a little bit. Make sure you don't use your arm, because if you use your whole arm, first of all, it doesn't sound very good, and you might get away with using your whole arm at that speed. But at a faster speed, you won't be able to because you're just moving too much mass. So make sure you're using your wrist and your fingers. Basically, you curl your fingers and bend your thumb after you've dropped the bow. The next step is to speed that up a little bit. Now at this speed already, the movement is hardly visible. Basically, I let my hand hang and I let it react. That's why it's very important that the hand is very relaxed. Keep a good contact with your fourth finger, but make sure this is very relaxed. At this speed, you will notice feeling the resistance of the string, and it feels as if you're shaking your wrist against this resistance. And see if you could speed it up even further. So basically you speed this movement up, about up to the speed that you want to play the variation. The next step is to do multiple 16th notes staying in one place, but add a note before and 2 notes afterwards, and then follow with a down bow, like this. The important thing is to still stay in one place, because that's the preparation for flying staccato. And the very important thing is the precise place where you do it. If you're too far up, you don't have much control and you don't control it. If you're too far down, the bow is too heavy. It's too heavy, you can't move it at that speed. There's one precise place on each bow, and it's different on each bow, otherwise I could just tell you where, but it's different for each bow. There's one precise place where it works. And if you're only slightly off, it doesn't. That's what makes this variation very, very difficult. So you have to find out where it works, and you can only do that by trial and error. So practice it like that, staying in one place for a long time. Make sure you keep your arm relaxed, because if you tense your arm, your hand won't be flexible and loose enough to react to this bowing. So make sure your arm is relaxed, make sure your hand and fingers are relaxed, good contact with the fourth finger to the bow stick, and by trial and error find out where exactly those 16th notes work. Next step is the same bowing, but do only 4 16th notes and do the same rhythm as you have in the variation. But still stay in one place, do not yet travel, not yet real flying staccato, which involves a traveling, but do them staying in one place. Notice that you're working with different bow speeds here. You have a certain speed for the quarter note before, then the bow speed gets much slower because you're staying in one place, even if the actual movement is fast, and then you have to speed up again for the 2/8 notes. So notice that you're working with fast, slow, fast. That's why it's important to practice them staying in one place at first, because when you do it in flying staccato, you have the same thing. The flying staccato, the bow speed is actually slower than in the notes before and afterwards. And to get used to that and to get used to the movement, it helps to practice with the 16th notes staying in one place and not yet traveling. The next step, obviously, is to allow the bow to travel a little bit in the 16th notes, and then you have the flying staccato. This motion of staying in one place is the basis for flying staccato, and it is that which will make it precise. So when you come from that, the next step is actually quite easy because you just allow the bow to travel a little bit during the 16th note. You just allow the bow to travel. But notice here too, you're working with different bow speeds. The bow is faster before the 16th notes and a bit slower during the 16th notes, and then faster for the 8th notes again. Now, as always, it's very important to also give yourself time to secure the left hand. First of all, what the left hand has to do in this variation is not all that easy. And because the bow requires so much concentration, it's very, very necessary to make sure the left hand is completely secure. Now, the best way to do that is to make it as easy as possible for the bow by playing the staccato staying on the string, staccato on the string, because that way you can practice it slowly. Notice that we have a glissando in most of the bars. That's done by sliding down with the finger playing the note before the glissando. And when you practice it slowly, staying on the string, practice the glissando as well. So that your left hand becomes really secure in what you're supposed to do. Now, when you're putting the left hand and the bowing together, the best way to do it is to build it up the same way as you built up the bowing on one note, because that way you will get security into it. So start off with playing multiple 16th notes, staying on one place. So important is to know exactly where those 16th notes work. Now, most likely you find that out in the preparation exercises already. In my bow, it's just about exactly the middle, but like I mentioned, even just 1 centimeter off and the whole thing doesn't work. So that's the most important thing that you're practicing when you're playing multiple 16th notes, staying in one place. Also, playing multiple 16th notes makes them very, very precise, because that's the basis of the flying staccato. When you play multiple 16th notes staying in one place, also concentrate on the feeling in your hand. It feels as if you're shaking your hand against a resistance. It's almost as if you're shaking your hand, banging it against something. So when you have while you're doing all these 16th notes, get used to the feeling, because that's what you need for the flying staccato. The next step is to do the same thing with only 4 16th notes, but still stay in one place. That's almost what you're supposed to do later on, but you get them very precise by practicing them staying in one place. And there again, notice the different bow speeds, because you have to reduce the speed to be able to stay in one place. So you have a faster speed, then you stay in one place, and then you have a faster speed again. Also with the down bow, make sure it sounds good, because I noticed with myself, I was concentrating so much on this bowing that I listened to myself and I thought, oh my God, my down bows sound terrible, because I simply didn't care about them. So there, it's also important to make sure the down bows sound nice, put a little bit of vibrato on them, so that they sound good as well, because like I said, I totally forgot about the down bows and didn't worry about them at all. And that's of course not good, because no matter how well you can do all the up bows, the down bows also have to sound. Next step is to do exactly the same thing, but allow the bow to travel a little bit during the 16th notes. Not too much, otherwise they won't be precise, just a little bit. By allowing the bow to travel a little bit, you are playing flying staccato. But there again, remember the different bow speeds. Even during the flying staccato where you're traveling a little bit, the bow speed is slower than on the quarter note before and the 2/8 notes afterwards. When you allow the bow to travel a little bit for the 16th notes, make sure you still feel the same shaking against a resistance movement in your hand, because the hand is doing the same thing. You're just allowing the bow to travel, so the feeling should be more or less the same as you had when you're staying in one place. When you're staying in one place, you have a little bit more resistance. That's the only difference. But you should feel the same shaking movement against resistance when you allow the bow to travel. Notice that in bar 8, 10 and 12, the down bow comes straight after the staccato. So that means you do the down bow starting in the middle already. Don't travel closer to the frog because you want to do the down bow with the whole bow. That's not what's intended and not what's marked in the music. But it sometimes happens because we're so used to traveling all the way down to the frog and playing the down bow with the whole bow, that what often happens is, and then it doesn't work out. So the bow division is exactly the same until the 16th notes are over, and then you just start the down bow in the middle. So you have to be careful about that. This variation is full of traps, and this is one of them. For the piano, as from bar 17, that's done with going to a slightly lower point of contact. And for the dolce, slightly tilt the bow towards the fingerboard. That reduces tension. and you'll get a bit of a softer, more dolce sound that way. But be careful not to do any of this too much, otherwise it won't work out. You'll have to try out how much you can tilt the bow for it to work. You won't jump as high. You also won't feel quite as much resistance if you tilt the bow. But if you tilt the bow too much, it won't work, because then you have too little tension on the hairs. So you'll have to be very careful with how much you tilt the bow and how low of a point of contact you use. It's another one of those traps in this variation. You're supposed to play piano and dolce, but it's very, very difficult to still get the flying staccato precise. So you'll have to find a balance there. This variation rarely stands and falls with exact bow division. Usually when the 16th notes don't work out, it's because you're not exactly in the right place, because even just a centimeter off can mean they don't work. Also be very careful to always feel this shaking against a resistance motion. Keep your hand very relaxed and your arm very relaxed. I hope you find this helpful. If you have any questions, let me know in the comments, and happy practicing.